Hello, NBPOLI world. We are back. We are back for our first election. This is it. We are in the official Writ drop. When you're listening to this podcast, we're recording it the night before the Writ drops. It's 9:13 at night. And Shawn and I are here. I'll bring Shawn on here in a second. But first of all, just wanted to acknowledge and announce that we are on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoq, and the Pescataway. And we are here in Menaquist. Shawn is down in Quispamsis. Hello, Shawn.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Welcome back. And
Thank you for having me.
Of course, as we were talking about before, we are not going to be able to be joined by Joanna. Joanna is now in the Writ drop sort of moment and sort of the rules of Rogers TV. And, we could technically have Joanna on the pod and just not do Rogers streams. But we thought, you know what? Rogers picked us up. We want to try to honor that. And their rules are they just can't give unfair airtime to certain candidates over others. So, hey, it is what it is. Joanna was thinking she wouldn't really be able to be on the podcast anyway once the Writ dropped. We were kind of hoping we'd squeeze in these last 29 ridings if we can tonight. But yeah, if you're wondering where Joanna is, you can certainly get at her on her socials. You can certainly message us and still get at her, but she won't be on the pod for the rest of the Writ. And there'll be a baby here soon anyway, so that was always going to be an encumbrance. But yeah, we have 29 ridings, Shawn, and
29.
We have 29 to go, and
That's 2 minutes each tops.
Yeah. So, where did we leave off?
So last week we talked about Moncton Center and Rob McKee and Dave Melanson, and there was one person I neglected to mention, James Ryan, who is the NDP candidate there. So, okay. And I think what we agreed was this was a safe Liberal seat for Rob, or this is one that he is considered sort of key in the government. He's probably a shoe-in for cabinet as well. He's a lawyer. He is the son of the former MLA for that riding, so very well-known family. I think we picked him as the favorite there.
Yeah. And, we've been seeing some more candidates come out. So, I know that there's a few Greens that dropped. I think there was, I don't know if there was a Conservative that came out since our last pod. But there was one notable Green that came out.
That's right.
And that was Mr. Victor Roussel up in Shipigandelo. And that was Eric and Yves Doucette called, and he gave me some pretty strict marching orders around pronunciation.
Thank you, Yves.
Yes, Yves, that was wonderful. We absolutely need to have a Francophone voice to correct my horrendous Anglophone pronunciation. He was running against, Roussel is a former Liberal MLA running for the Greens against Eric Mallet. And we had Eric leaning on that seat. Do you think this is going to substantially change it? What do you think this does? We're not going to go back and go over everyone, but we both sort of thought, hey, this is a pretty notable get for the Greens. And having, since Mr. Roussel had served before, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, certainly. And there is no PC candidate in that riding now. So last week it was between Eric and nobody, and this week is between Eric and Wilford. So it's definitely a race now. And again, Wilford is well known in that riding, former MLA, and has gotten the support. So it's now gone from not very interesting to very interesting. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that one, just all of a sudden it's I'm going to put up the map here, and we can maybe go back up to Shippigan there. And yeah, the map is working great. There we are, way up there in the north, one of the most northern tips of New Brunswick. Actually, I think it might be the most northern tip of New Brunswick. Sometimes the map looks like the Bathurst area or the Edmonton area is further north, but I think as far as magnetic north goes, this might be up there. Anyway, interesting place to watch now. It just became one of these, we had a couple of listeners, as you NBPOLI pod listeners, you responded to our call to say, hey, what do you think is going to be the game? How is this going to play out? We did get some people respond back. I really loved Kendall Harrison. He really laid out. He's got a great sort of safe seat, liberal seat. You can go back to our podcast post from last week. You can see Kendall's take on things. He's got one safe green and it looks like about 17 safe liberals and 15 safe conservatives, and then there's some likelies and then some toss-ups. And his take is, hey, those green lib splits are a real danger. Very interesting take for sure. And like I said, we're not going to be able to hear Joanna's final take before we jump into this week. We had ourselves. I'm just going to make sure I get my list here. Shawn, yours were 1 for the PCs so far, 2 for the Greens, and the other 17 for the Liberals. Liberal lean. Do you think it changes anything in Shippagan? Does your lean change on that one? You still think it's? I
would say. Well, now I would say it's a toss-up, and I'll be the first to admit I don't know that riding very well, but. There's certainly Wilford has a lot of credibility with the voters. Eric again is very popular, so it's definitely become very interesting. Without knowing more, I'd say it's probably a toss-up now. But I'd see if there's someone up there who knew more than me who wanted to comment.
All right, well, we'll leave that one alone. I think I'm going to leave it 2 for now until I see more. I don't know how long. Whitford's been out of the game, and that credibility can always be there, but then there's a sense of it's time for someone else, or Eric's already been there. So I have to see how it plays out in the campaign. So I'm going to leave mine as it is. Mine was 2 for the PCs, and 5 so far leans for the Greens, and the rest. So that would be 13 for the Liberals in the first 20. So. Without any further ado, let's get into the Moncton ridings, and we'll try to blast through some of the clear leans or some of the clear toss-ups. I do have some comments on the Pettit-Kodiak region from a listener that I'll bring in that might add some flavor to our analysis, but we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So we're in riding 20 now, which is Moncton South. So that is highly contested riding, I would say, and I'll need your help with a couple of these folks. So Claire Johnson is running for the Liberals. Claire is a university professor and an advocate for wellness who's well known in the community, very popular. There's Greg Turner, who was the Advanced Education Labor cabinet minister for Higgs after the departure of one of his one of his rebels. And then there's Vincent. Now, Vincent, I don't know very well, but my understanding is he works for the city of Moncton, and he's a well-known advocate in the community.
Yeah, Vincent's a good get for them there. It does make this an interesting situation, right? Where you have some of this rebel hangover potential. You obviously have, I heard someone say this is just as much Dominic LeBlanc's Liberals in this area as it is, any of Susan's team. Right. Dominic just has such a legacy, and his father has such a legacy, and they've built up such a network that that they, this is Claire is one of those. There's going to be well-resourced Liberals there, but I think it's as good as you could probably ask. I would still leave this to Claire. I think is my lean on that one.
Yeah, I just don't think Greg is one of the more impressive members of Hicks's team, and he was probably a latecomer to cabinet because of that. Claire Johnson is certainly a little more impressive. Now, what if there's a split between Vincent and Claire? I don't know. Can Vincent take enough vote away from Claire? I'm not sure.
This is a resting conversation for us to figure out as we go here. But in some places, the Greens and the Liberals are the obvious contestants. In other places, Greens are taking conservative votes who are so frustrated with their party and would never vote Liberal, and can get behind David, who's a more reserved type of leader who's got credibility and has some recognition. And it's so hard to tell in Moncton. I do think it is more of the Liberals and the Greens sort of fighting out for a similar base. So you're right. Who knows what happens there? That is going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I should just quickly mention Rebecca Rogers for the NDP. She's run several times in the past for the NDP. She's I'd said an orange, dyed in orange. I've heard dyed in wool, but maybe dyed in orange kind of person. So she's NDP through and through, is what I'm trying to say. And
absolutely,
yeah. So I don't think she's going to attract much vote, though, especially with the Green and the Liberal there.
Yeah, the better candidates, I think, for sure. All right, what do we got? So you got that lean on the Liberals too? What do you got?
I'll lean Liberal on that one.
Okay. And now we're going to 21.
21. So
Mr. DJ himself.
That's right. So we've got the finance minister, Ernie Steves, had a big week, announced another big surplus from last year, which makes in the past, total in the Higgs years, almost $3 billion with a B in surplus that went to pay down the debt instead of going to public services. If you're a Tory, maybe you like that. Everybody else does not like that. They want the money spent on their services. They want a family doctor. They want a rent cap. They want power bill relief. So depending on who you are, we'll see how that shakes out. But big announcement for him this week. Tanya Sodi is a lawyer who is, I'd say this is a nice get for the Liberals, a well-known lawyer in Moncton. I think that's all I can say about her. She's she's a new face.
Yeah.
Has I'd say an ardent community behind her. She has a big team that's helping her out. They all showed up together at Susan Holt's kickoff. They all sort of got out of a big SUV, so her with her entourage, she's sort of like a rock star. So it was, I'd say she's got a very committed team that goes with her everywhere and has got her back. So
she's got those vibes. She's got vibes for sure. I don't know what her political game is like, but she's definitely trying to win on vibes.
Yeah, for sure. And then Anna Santana, I don't know her very well.
She's a first generation immigrant from the Dominican. And Anna has run before for the Greens, I believe. She's somebody who's pretty steady hand. She's involved in a lot of community work, a lot of stuff for Francophone newcomers, and healthcare advocacy work. So, she has that Latin American vote. There's no question. There's been different immigration trends. And the newcomers, they will really show up and support in ways that surprises me. Like I see it in St. John here, and I know it's similar in Moncton. So who knows how that split sort of breaks down? I'm going to lean Ernie on this one.
With the vote splitting on the left, it probably will be. Yeah. I'd have to. As much as it pains me to say it, because I'm not a fan of these huge surpluses.
Nope, me either.
I think you're right.
I hear you. Okay.
All right. Champdor, Irish Town. So this is one of the new ridings with no incumbents. Until recently, it didn't have any other competition for Lynn Chantal Boudreau, who's been there for several weeks now, maybe months. She was up there by herself. Matthew Clark for the Greens was just nominated.
Yep.
So Matthew, again, he's a new face to me. I think this is his first campaign. He grew up in Rouse and went to UNB as a Bachelor of Arts in French. So just a guy who wants to see some change, I guess. Ricky Gautreaux is a little bit of an interesting story. Ricky had put himself forward previously and even had a nomination scheduled and then canceled it for health reasons. And I'm not sure what those health reasons are, but he was pretty solid that he had dropped out. He wasn't going to run, and then he was back. So he must be feeling better. That's great news. I'm glad Ricky's feeling better. And he is a well-known quandary. He's a former municipal politician there, so a nice get for the PCs. However, he's sort of, when you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I'm not sure how he's going to do there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's going to be hard to beat the Liberals in and around Moncton in any of these places. The vote split may hurt them, but in this one, Matthew Clark is recent individual, but he has been involved with the Green Party and federally and later provincially since 2008. So he's a legacy guy. He's going to have a network behind it, but I do have to lean this to the Liberals. I
agree. Yeah. And honorable mention to Andrew Mullett, who is the NDP candidate.
Yeah.
He's a Newfoundlander who went to school there, and he's new to New Brunswick. So welcome, Andrew, and good for you for getting involved. And again, I'm not going to call any ridings for the NDP. Sorry, NDP. It's just they're not on the map right now, and I'm just going to do the same for the People's Alliance. They're just not on the map. So sorry, guys.
I do have a prediction about these at the end if we have time.
Okay.
But let's keep moving. This is good.
Riverview. So let's see if we can zoom in a little on Riverview. So this was Bruce Fitch's riding. He's held it for a while, and he announced he was not going to run again. So this is now one of these no incumbent ridings who are yellow here on the map. So all new faces running here. Scott Grant for the Liberals. Rob Weir for the PCs, Sarah Lord for the Greens, and Desiree Dupre for the NDP.
And it's this one to me is a dog's breakfast for analysis, because none of these folks have previous votes to their name. Like we can't even assume a level of incumbency because they've run in something before, as far as I can tell. Now, unless I'm missing something about Rob Weir, who I know a little less about, I don't believe he has served, and I don't think any of them has served.
On Rob Weir's candidate site, it says one line for his bio: Rob Weir is your PCNB candidate for Riverview.
Let's go.
Thanks, guys. It's awesome.
A lot of information. You guys are really running a Blaine-centered campaign. We get it. So you know what? I'm gonna. Jeez.
Now, Scott Grant, there's a little more information about him. He's from New Brunswick, lifelong resident of Riverview, went to Mount A, worked at ALC for 30 years in various leadership positions.
Sarah Lord, actually similar, right? Went to Mount A, honors in biochem, honors works, received a PhD from the University of Alberta. She's definitely a healthcare advocate. She's been through it with her mom's health and and things like that. It's I don't think Sarah has ever run before, but she's going to have game, right? And Rob, it's how hard around Moncton with that one. So I'm going to lean Scott on this, but my goodness, is it going to be interesting to see?
Yeah, knowing nothing else from all, if I'm a voter and I'm looking for information on Rob Weir, all I see is a warm body with a blue t-shirt on. So that's it. I'm in the absence of any other information, I'll have to go with Scott as well.
Cool. All right, 24.
So this is Albert Riverview. So this is Sherry Wilson's riding, who is in cabinet. Again, probably not one of the shining stars that have only really gotten into cabinet once the Rebel 6 had left. Probably, what you would consider one of the B string. Sorry, Sherry, but I think that's true. That being said, hard worker, knows her file, really well intentioned, probably well known in the riding, and well supported. So I think this one is going to be tough competition for the Liberal Dave Guthrow. Dave is one of the earliest Liberals to get out there and has been working hard. I don't know if he can get past Sherry Wilson though.
This might be one of those areas though, like it kind of comes down to, do we think the People's Alliance is going to get more than 3% of the vote in any riding? If we think yes on that, I think this Sharon Buchanan, could peel off some conservatives. This is a more rural part of Riverview, right?
But I still think this is probably a two-person race, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Sherry on this one. It's once you're in cabinet, I've said it on this show before. The incumbency advantage is worth about 5 points right off the top, unless you're a terrible constituency, representative. Unless you're somebody who is just sitting in Fredericton and doing no work in your constituency. There's a sense that, hey, we made it. We've got a person in cabinet and our community's being listened to. It comes with some of that perception. It's worth definitely 3 to 5 points of popular vote. I know Sherry's not beloved, and I know there's been some checkered issues there, but I don't know. I think they'll hold on to this one.
Yeah, I'm just looking over her record to make sure what I said was correct, and it was not correct. She was formerly the cabinet minister for Service New Brunswick in 2018, and also responsible for women's equality. Yep. So she was in cabinet before the Rebel 6. So I still think she's probably one of the lesser ministers that Higgs has on his team now. And I wouldn't be surprised if she made it into cabinet, if she didn't make it into cabinet again, rather.
Yeah, that's true. So are you giving it to the Liberal on this one?
I mean, I think it really is a toss-up, but I'll go PC.
Okay. All right, 25.
25. This is my favorite riding name right now. Arcadia, Butternut Valley, Maple Hills.
So true. It's so true.
So this is Liberal Connie Larson, PC Don Monahan, and Green Brian Boucher. So Don Monahan, we've talked about him on the podcast before. Don is the guy who ran the secret fundraiser at the drive-in in Sussex. He's the owner of the drive-in.
KOA,
and wanted to run a fundraiser for and just show Grease and E.T., two very popular movies, get a big crowd. And at the very bottom of the text for the event, after several dozen lines, was a little line that said, "Oh, by the way, this is a PC fundraiser," and it got called out on it in a pretty big way online, and comments on Facebook. Eventually they turned it into a private showing and invited well wishers. So I'd say in the end he did the right thing for it. It was he got some deserved criticism for trying to hide that. He is a well-known business person in the Sussex area, so he's and that is, a conservative spot at Sussex. So definitely has a chance.
This is one of those ones where I think the type of person Brian Boucher, um, you know, as far as I know, is pretty involved with the Liberal Party before. This is going to be one of those sort of liberal green fights, and the PCs aren't going to have anybody peeling off them. From what I understand, Connie's putting in a lot of work in the Gagetown, Cambridge Narrows area. Brian's putting, and Don, Monahan's putting a lot of work up in the Havelock area and, into Sussex where he's at. And Brian's sort of getting, the other parts of this riding where it's so interesting to see. It is going to come down to who has the team to get out the votes. Because I think
Absolutely.
these guys, each of these candidates isn't really representing a party as much as they're representing a part of this really big riding that's really wide spanning. And it is going to be one to watch. Do you have a lean on this one?
So just looking at Connie Larson's resume here, she is from out of province and has recently moved here, wants to get involved. She's an award-winning nonfiction author and has published a novel of her adventures in nature. She's a real outdoors person, executive director of a lake property owners association with 6,000 members. So again, first-time politician, just getting involved for the first time. But I think I've got to get this one to the PCs.
I think I'm gonna lean this one to the Greens.
Oh, really? Okay.
To Brian, I just been seeing, and it's what it is. It isn't. It's because I think there's enough people around the area who are frustrated with things. I've heard that from people when I go around Hampton, and I don't think Don's gonna convince anybody otherwise. You're not going to see Liberal supporters jump, and I think Connie's going to have a hard time sort of defeating the come from away sort of vibe. It's just my opinion. And Brian's social media game has been really good, and his pictures have good quality to them. This is really narrow thinking. People are going to be like, Brent, like we've come to at least respect some level of civility in your analysis, but this is just pure. I know Brian, I know the type of work he's putting in. I know he's a busy guy. Mm-hmm. The regional split makes this weird. And I think it is going to come down to who can get a message across on social media that looks professional and believable. So far, I got to give that to Brian. So I'm going to lean this to Brian.
All right.
Are you leaning at PCs, you said, right?
I'm going to lean it to PCs. Yep.
All right. Okay.
All right. So Sussex Three Rivers. This is one we've talked about before.
Yes.
So this is the face-off between Bruce Northrup, Tammy Scott Wallace, and Green Terry McMacken, who's been on the podcast before.
That's right. Yeah. There is some interesting stuff here. Tammy is an embattled sort of tourism person in government, and Tammy has been in Paris and London and been seen as gallivanting around Europe, trying to, grow the New Brunswick brand and to learn brand place management and all this stuff from afar. And it didn't catch on very well back here for a bit. But I've also heard some interesting sort of analysis that, with Ross Wetmore, who was here, who stepped down. No, Ross didn't step down from.
Well, no, he stayed until the end, but yeah, he's not running again anymore.
Yes,
and that's why this one.
Yes, because Ross would have run in where?
Oh, right. Well, this is one of those unique things. So
that's right. Ross would have technically been in this riding, and
right.
There was with some healthcare issues and some health announcements. Ross was working on some pretty substantial issues for his community. And, the PCs completely snubbed him. They didn't even invite him to the announcement.
That's right.
And he was working on that for 2 years. I think that's poisoned the well for the PCs. So I really cannot see this going back to them with Tammy's mess, with Ross, having an entire batch of people who really fought for him and worked with him, and he really fought hard for an issue that only to be not even invited to it actually happening and getting done. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because you've got all of the hardcore PCs, and there's a lot of them in Sussex, where I grew up there, who will support Tammy regardless. Bruce was the minister and for the PCs, of course, in Sussex for years, and sort of was the one who, what's a good way to say it, coronated Tammy.
That's right.
Sort of advocated for her to take over from him when he retired before, and
that's right.
And he's come back. So just that whole dynamic there. There'll be a group of people who will, I think, stay with Bruce. There's a group who will vote PC regardless, and then Terry has, I think, a growing following as well. Just this anti-establishment, anti-government sort of feeling in that riding, I think will work in her favor. And I think she does have a lot of support in that riding.
Yeah.
And that'll probably take votes away from Bruce.
I think it's actually, I think it's going to take votes from the Conservatives in this case.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I think Terry will take Conservative votes because, she's been a councillor in Petitcodiac. She's run, she's posted a lot of work on social media about some of her adventures and, building and on sort of a secondary suite on their home and their, family, and they're very family oriented. They're very involved in the Petitcodiac area. She knows everybody. And I think Ross, I am going to lean it to Ross, and I have, friend of the pod, Terry. I love Terry. If Terry can run a really aggressive get out the vote game and find some new voters, I think she's got a shot. I don't think Tammy does. I think the knives are out for Tammy, and I think PCs who were just middle of the track just don't care. They're going to go back and support who they know, and that's going to be the Libs. I'm going to lean it toward Bruce. I'm going to lean it toward the Libs, but it is an interesting one. I think that the PCs are in for a bit of a kicking here in the voter turnout. I think this will be one of those strange moments where you have a progressive Conservative, as you say, a known quantity in Northrop. People will just pull it back to the Liberal fold for even if it's just a single election cycle, because he was PC. But
yeah, I think if I had to make a call, I would land this one with the Libs, although I think it'll be very, very close. I think everyone thinks it's going to be extremely close, and I think it just might teeter over the edge for Bruce.
All right. We're up to 40 minutes. Time flies when we're banging out these ridings like this.
This next one, Hampton Funny St. Martin's, we have talked a lot about this riding in the past, and we've actually, when we went through ridings before, we did this one, so we don't need to, I think, spend a ton of time here. We've talked a lot about the PC, Faitine Grasseshi. She is trying very hard. I don't think her message is landing. I think Heron has really stolen her thunder, and the folks who organized in that riding have all rallied around the Liberals. So even though Laura Myers for the Greens is a very credible candidate, I don't think that she's going to get the votes. I think it's going to be a large protest vote against the PCs for not only the way they treated Gary Crossman, but the way they railroaded the candidate that they wanted to present in that riding. And now everyone is coalesced around Heron. So,
I don't know if I would say for sure around Heron. I mean, I think Aaron he lacks some charisma and he lacks some of that Hampton spirit, just the no nonsense, say it how it is. He is a bit more of a seasoned politician for sure, but I think that plays against him. I do think he's going to take this. And I think for Laura, it's like she has picked up progressive conservatives. Fatine is importing all net new people, right? All net new voters. There is a lot of charismatic Christians in these areas, these more rural areas. And that isn't because I hate saying it like, oh, people in the rural areas are dumb. I was a charismatic evangelical Christian. It wasn't because I was dumb. Anyway, I could go on about that. I have gone on about that in this podcast. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with your worldview and the things you really believe in. And there are people who have never voted in this area who have just bleed for the crucifix, if you will. That's everything they care about, who will vote for Fatine. But you're right. Anybody who's anybody has split, and a lot of them have gone to John. Some of them have gone to Laura. But this is a full ticket. This is one of the only ridings in the province where we've got a full ticket, and that, like, how that splits is like a strain. In this case, so I don't know who Laura, the Greens are splitting from, whether it's liberal. I think it's PCs. I don't think they're picking from the Liberals. I think Liberals will rally fully around John. And so I think Laura's picking up, disenfranchised PCs who will never vote Liberal. So it's, And
again, honorable mention to Peter Graham and Gordy Stackhouse for the People's Alliance and NDP respectively.
That's right.
I don't think they're going to be factors here, but again, good for you for getting involved.
Mm-hmm. So you're giving it to John, and I'm leaning it to John.
Okay. 28. There's somebody named Blaine Higgs running here. I mean, this is Andrew Conradi. For the Greens, I don't know him very well. He is someone who just declared. I did Google him when he announced last week, and seems like a credible candidate. Not well known in the riding.
No, he's well known around the St. John area. Like, he knows folks. His father is quite politically active. Andrew is quite intelligent. It just he doesn't have a lot of infrastructure here.
No,
he doesn't have a lot of money. He won't have a lot of infrastructure from the party. He's got to build it all from scratch, and that is a very hard task. And Aaron Kennedy for the Liberals, like, this guy is the CAO for the town of Quispamsis. That's a really big get for the Liberals.
Absolutely. I think Aaron is well known in the town, especially in political circles. And there is, Higgs has been the MLA here for 14 years. I think people do feel a little taken for granted in the town. I still think Higgs has got an advantage here, just where he is the premier and has been elected for, in the past 3 elections here. So it's definitely blowing in his direction, but the anti-Higgs sentiment in Quispamsis has never been stronger. So I'd go as far to say this is a toss-up, but we'll probably land on Blaine Higgs' side, but not. It's going to be close, I believe, really close.
I think Higgs will get at least 45% of the vote, but I have to say the biggest tip of my hat that I can give goes to Alex White. To put your name as the leader of the NDP up against the dragon of the Conservative Party, who, by the way, and we haven't talked about this, but is pulling in bureaucrats from Ontario. A lot of rhetoric flying around, but Alex, for you to put your name down here, it's a big, big statement. And
and just on Alex, full points to the NDP, who have pulled together 25 candidates. Who saw that happening? Not me. Mm-hmm. I didn't think there was any way they'd get 25 candidates. So yeah, their rumors of their demise were apparently exaggerated. There is a groundswell of support for them. I don't know if it'll translate into votes, but the party is still certainly alive.
Every vote counts. Every vote's worth an amount of money. So.
And into Rouse, we've talked about Rouse before on the pod. So this is Alison Townsend for the Liberals, Ted Fleming for the PCs, Zara McKay-Boyce for the Greens, and Cindy Andre for the NDP.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, of course, Ted has a big advantage. He's been elected here for several years now. He's also been here a long time. But I don't think he's as much a lightning rod as the premier is next door, obviously. He'll have a lot of just old money Rouse support behind him, of course. Alison is going to give him a run for his money, though. I think it's going to be close. But
Allison's definitely going to give him a run for his money. Zara, I love seeing Zara in this race. She's a young person, very connected family. They run the Rhoda's Flea Market here on the east side of the city, and that's a very, very popular event. These are the types of people we need to see in politics, that we need to see showing up to care about the issues. Ted is just so hard to beat, and it is because he embodies Rouse, I guess. I don't understand Rouse very well. I don't understand how it thinks, and I won't pretend to. But I know that Ted is going to win this, or I think he's going to win this.
Yeah, and I think Zara will probably split away votes from Alison. Unfortunately, I think Ted has had his turn. I'd like to see a change in Rouse. I'm not optimistic it's going to happen. No. If Higgs does lose, I don't think he'll hang around, though. He's not going to be a backbencher. He'll just go into private industry again. So he's only there if Higgs is in government. I think he walks away if that doesn't happen.
I agree. And Higgs will walk away if he doesn't, if he doesn't win, if he's not premier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. St. John East, here's another interesting one. 5-way race. David Alston for the Liberals, Glenn Savoy for the PCs, Gerald Irish for the Greens, Tanya Graham for the PANB, and Josh Floyd for the NDP.
Yep.
So David would have had an announcement just, I guess it was last week or the week before, around doing something similar to the 12 Neighbors housing project in Fredericton here in St. John. So,
and in his riding, he managed to land it in his riding.
Absolutely. So good for him. And he decided he wanted to do this again several months ago, and he's been working hard ever since to try and earn those votes. So
David's an interesting get for them, sort of a millionaire type from the tech era. It's well known in many circles around some of the unicorn hunting that New Brunswick did around the tech industry. And you think of him, you think of Marcel Lebrun, you think of Dave Grabentz, you think of a few others, right, that built up companies like Radian 6 and Innovatia, and even NBPOLI, like when it was in its leading days. And but the only thing I wonder about David on the east side is just how of a well-known east side quantity he is.
True.
But he is provincially well known, and he has support. So but Glenn's hard to beat.
Glenn is hard to beat, but I think his support organization is really diminished. There's not that enthusiasm out there for Higgs, as we said before. I think that's going to really work against Glenn. I think some of the non-PC, non-liberal votes will go away from Glenn. I think people are in the mood to vote out the PCs in that riding, and I think that'll work to David Alston's advantage. But it's really probably too close to call. I don't know about Gerald at all, to be honest.
Jerry is a like a really respectable guy. He's known around the Champlain Heights neighborhood group. He cares about the community. He works for Xerox. He's fairly well connected, project manager type in different circles. If Jerry were going to split votes, he'd pull from Glenn. He wouldn't pull from Alston.
Okay.
Actually, Tanya Graham and Josh Floyd together won't get 2% of the vote, I don't believe. But Jerry, I think, has a chance if he runs a really aggressive campaign. He is more East Side known than David Alston. But he won't have a lot of money, and he will not have a fully funded campaign and a bunch of staff people running for him. So he is going to have to build that from, he has run before, not from scratch, but he's going to have to build it up quite a bit from where he's been last time. I have to lean this to David Alston. But
I would like to say David as well. And just because, again, the anti-Higgs sentiment, and especially if Gerald is peeling votes off of Glenn and not David, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what's going to get David through in this case, which is so interesting, right? Like, this is what makes New Brunswick, for all you listeners, like, you would never see the Greens peeling from Conservatives in many places in this country, in any places, right? It'd be like the NDPs, but I mean, maybe I'm going to eat my words here, because we are seeing the Conservatives eat the NDP's federal lunch. They are pulling NDP votes. So it's, someone said to me before, and this is, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to pass on the message. I know we're at 51 minutes in. We're not going to get done all these ridings this week.
I don't think so.
But somebody said to me before, they said, Liberals and the NDP and Conservatives can sit together and talk for hours. But the Liberals can't hang in, and I don't mean all Liberals. I just mean most Liberals you see in government can't really hang around with them, because PCs and NDP have a lot of ideological underpinnings that guide them around their policy pieces, and they're very entrenched on them, and so they can get into very long debates and discussions. But Liberals really are more pragmatic, and they can move around and sway, and they don't really have a lot of ideological underpinnings. And so it's like that could be what we're seeing here. The fact that Jerry's pulling off people who can think more libertarian and, whatnot, that plays into the Greens. Anyway, enough on these St. John.
I will say one thing I do know is people say David Alston's running a model campaign. He has been working this for months, and it works hard every single day, has a big team working with him. And I think that'll probably make the difference here and bring it over the line.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one, St. John, Portland. This is an interesting one. So we've got Dr. John Doran. I think everyone knows Dr. Doran, former CEO of Horizon Health, was fired by Blaine Higgs and said, "No, you don't. I'm coming back, and I'm going to take a swipe at you." It's certainly, well-known, intelligent guy, very well respected in the community. And he's one of those people, if you don't like Higgs, you're going to vote Doran in that riding. And it's just a matter of how strong the anti-Higgs sentiment is, in my opinion. Paul Dempsey was recruited by Nicole Carlin, one of Higgs' senior people. I think for folks who know who Nicole Carlin is, he is her uncle. So she pulled him into the race in that riding to go up against Doran. And then there's PJ Duncan for the Greens and Michael Saunders for the NDP.
Doran. There's not much more to say.
Yep, we can keep this one. And Doran is working it hard too. He has a crew, again, who is working just as hard as Alston's people. They're making calls every single day. And again, this is Trevor Holder's old riding. So people who don't like the way Trevor was treated have have a grudge against Higgs in this riding. And again, who better to embody that than someone else who Higgs fired. So again, this is part of that I think there is a St. John sentiment that runs against Higgs in many of these ridings we're going to talk about. And this is one of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Understatement. Yeah, it is. It runs deep here.
Harbor. So this is one with no incumbent. So we've got City Councillor David Hickey, one of your peers, running for the Liberals. We've got Adam Smith, who is Glen Savoy's EA, who actually wanted to run where Paul Dempsey is running, he ran
Kim Costane. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, he ran against Kim Costane in West Lancaster and was not successful, and came back and was acclaimed in St. John Harbor. And then Mariah Darling, who is big with Chroma. I think a lot of people know them through Chroma. Also the child of former Mayor Don Darling, well-known quantity in St. John and area, and really throughout the province. And then for the NDP, we've got Kenneth Proctor.
I'm going to lean this toward David Hickey.
Yeah, me too. Just where Adam really is a parachute candidate. I don't know about support for Mariah. Is the only, I think, X factor for me.
Yeah, I mean, this was my riding. I ran in. We managed to get the vote from 13% to 24%, or so 23 point something percent. And so we did a lot of work in Harbor to get this sort of the green brand awareness to people for consideration. I was running against Alice McKim and Arlene Dunn. And Arlene Dunn, she cleaned up 34% of the vote. What I will say, I found out after the race was over from a PC insider who worked in the executive level for the PCs. He told me that there was a poll showing the Green Party polling at 34% in that riding. I think Harbor is the most it is the most impossible riding to predict because the vote turnout is so low. The partisan sort of spirit leans to the PC, like the partisans that are the most organized and capable, you might say, are in the PC camp, but that camp has been decimated. You parachuted Arlene Dunn in, and she did a great job, only to become sort of disenfranchised and quit the party. That poisoned a lot of people. Adam Smith is a nobody. He's just a farm team boy running from the PC sort of executive. He doesn't present well. He doesn't seem to understand the issues there. I mean, but Mariah only lost to David for the council seat by 60 votes. So there's a lot of liberal lighthousing that happens with David. He gets a lot of social media game, a lot of people like, comment, but it's not a lot of St. John Harbor people, right? It's a lot of like federal. Right. He was the president of the Young Liberals federally, right? Like he was born. I tease him sometimes to say, David was born in a liberal lab. It's like he sees the world a certain way, and he's been elected twice, and yet Mariah nearly beat him. It is going to be a tight race, but I got to lean at David.
Yeah. And another thing I know is David and his team are grinding every day, and they live in the heart of that riding on one of the most challenging neighborhoods in the province, I think. And people know him in that riding and respect him. So, I definitely give that to them. And again, there is probably anti-Higgs sentiment here as well, because of the way Arlene Dunn was treated by Higgs.
We got one more riding, one more St. John. Let's get
one more. And this would be Dorothy Shepherd's riding. Again, Dorothy left in protest from cabinet and, because of Higgs' leadership. So we've got Liberal Kate Wolcott, who works for the city of St. John, Maiden name Elman. A lot of people know the Elmans on the west side. Kate was also one of the founders of the Interaction Children's Theater here in St. John, so she's well known from there. Kim Costain, we've talked about Kim on the pod before. She is a TikTok star. She has quite a following there. Very well known from that, and is a newcomer to politics. And then our very own Joanna Killen, who anyone who listens to the pod knows Joanna. So we're all big fans of hers. And then Jane Ryan for the NDP.
It's this is another one of those dog breakfasts, man. You look at incumbency, there's no incumbent advantage. I have to give, like, if you were gonna just build a bit of a checklist, okay, how do you make a call about a riding like this? Okay, you got to give an incumbency advantage to somebody. In this case, Joe would be the closest to an incumbent that we have in St. John West, where she's run before as a Green candidate, but she's also gotten 1,800 votes as a councillor. So we can give that check mark over there for what it's worth for name recognition. Her dad also was a PCMLA under before Shawn Graham, after Shawn Graham. Who was the premier? Yes, thank you, David Allward. I just blanked on his name. And then you think,
it's getting late.
You think of name recognition, and they all sort of have their own little piece of that pie, I guess, on the west side. You can't really give anybody a noticeable advantage. So it is going to come down to ground game. It is going to come down to, what is that incumbency advantage worth? Definitely, there's a lot of conservatives in St. John West that loved Dorothy, loved Aunt Dottie, as they call her on St. John West, Aunt Dottie, and will not be voting for Kim. If Kim is going to win, it's going to be because she finds a 15% net new voters and she gets them to the polls. That's the only hope she's got. Kate has a bit of an interesting pathway. Sharon Terror was the former candidate there. And finished second to Aunt Dottie, to Dorothy. So there'll be some people who are kind of bipartisan. It's an interesting riding because Kate Wilcott's husband used to be the riding president for the Greens and was the one who recruited. Michael Wilcott was the one who recruited Joanna to the Greens, and actually Kate was at Joanna's campaign launch that was supposed to happen when Blaine was threatening an election last October in the middle of a strike here in the city with the unions. And anyway, this is one of those, like, God, it's going to come down to, how much were people paying attention? What sort of assumptions do they make? But I have to personally give it to the incumbency advantage in this case. I'll give it to the Greens.
I would expect nothing less. And I will give it to Kate Wilcott.
All right.
For all the reasons we talked about. And they are, again, working it hard. Kate is pounding the pavement every single day, trying to get that vote. And is hearing a lot of dissatisfaction with Higgs.
Absolutely.
I talked to her recently. So, yeah, I think there is. The cards in this case are stacked against Kimmy, I believe.
Yep. All right. Well, Shawn, we did it. But we're not done.
No, we're not done.
We're not done, but we did it. We only have, what number are we on here? I just lost count. We're on 33. So we have
33.
So we did 13 tonight. That leaves us with, what is that? 16 to go next week. We got to get through it before we get too far into the election. So we'll be back next week, everybody. This is a lot of fun. Riding by riding. We still haven't gotten to Fredericton. We got Charlotte County. We got flip back up in the north. It's a pretty wild ride here, but I think, Shawn, you might have the Liberals in majority territory so far.
I haven't counted them up, but yeah, I'll have to take a look.
I think it's close to majority territory here. I've still got them quite far away. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate your time, Shawn. And coming
you too.
Regaling us with this insight. It's great.
Well, thanks to everyone who participated online last week too, and feel free to reach out and share your own predictions. especially for those, if you disagree, we'd love to hear another perspective. And if you're from the riding we talked about and you say, you guys don't know what you're talking about,
Please.
you give us some context that we're missing.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. All right, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.